So glad to see you this morning at the National Family Engagement Summit, our first time being here, my co-presenters, and we wanted to have a conversation with you all about families working with teachers and making sure that our teachers are prepared to do family community engagement work. What a novel idea, right? Right? So we say it's important, but are we actually holding our colleges of education accountable? Are we doing the work in those teacher ed, teacher prep programs? And then when those teachers go to the school districts, are they getting ongoing professional development so that they can do this important work? You need to know what's going on. So we're going to have the conversation today. Teaching is the most important profession on the planet, second only to being a parent or a caregiver. That is the line that I share with all my future teachers with whom I teach and serve every day. But now we need to make sure that we put our money where our mouth is. If we believe that, we need to do a better job at ensuring that those pre-service teachers, those baby teachers, and in-service teachers know how to reach, connect, respect, and love our families and communities. So about a year ago, we had a special call with the Journal of Teacher Education. I serve as the co-editor for the Journal of Teacher Education, and we wanted to just have the conversation around family engagement. It's the scholarly area. I know a lot of folks don't like to read those highfalutin articles, but that evidence means something. It means that folks are actually doing the work, paying attention to the data, and reporting it out. And today you're going to hear about some great work that's going on around the country. Let's advance to the next slide, please. So a little bit before we get started with housekeeping, I want to remind everybody that we are recording this presentation so we can share it out later. If you could silence your phone, we would appreciate that as well. Now, we are going to have the panelists share in some presentations, but we want to hear from all the wisdom in the room, so we're going to include a special Q&A section as well. For those of you who are joining us online, thank you for being here. Make sure that you're able to use that Q&A feature in Zoom, as well as the closed captioning feature as well. So we have some really great documents that accompany this panel presentation from our folks who have done this work with the journal, but also with our new friend from the United Negro College Fund as well. So pay attention to the app. All of that great material can be found on the app. So guys, here's our agenda. I want all of the panelists to share their introductions today. We're going to begin with the folks who are in the room and on the stage with me, and then we have a couple of panelists who are joining us online from Ball State University as well as from Canada. So we got some friends online, and we want you to hear from them today as well. Then what we've done, we put together a few questions that we thought would be appropriate for this audience today. And so we're going to do 3 rounds with all of the panelists, and then we'll turn it over to you all, because hopefully those questions will be germinating. You'll get a chance to, share your questions as well. So we'll field your questions. And then we're going to wrap it up, everybody, with some final thoughts. We're going to move on to the next slide. So here are the photos of the panelists today. We got a couple online and, of course, a couple on the stage. I'm going to kick it off with my introduction, and I think you all know me. You need to know that I am the 12th of 13 kids, the only one to go to college. My parents couldn't read or write, and they never went to school one day to engage, not for any of us. But then when I look back, I realized, oh yeah, my mama, she was engaging. She made sure we were respectful. She made sure we were clean. She made sure we ate. So that invisible engagement matters, absolutely. I have been a teacher in the second poorest school district in America, in Camden, New Jersey. I promised my babies when I was a teacher there, a middle school science teacher, that when I went on to the university, everything I would do would be for them, and that's exactly what I've done. So as I have endeavored to really stay connected to community, doing what my mama taught me, but also remembering my babies, I do so with certain kinds of activities in my classroom with future teachers. I do a lot of service learning. And those of you who know what service learning is all about, it's all about that learning in and with and alongside the community. And I've been doing that for over a dozen years. I now want to turn it over to my friend, Dr. Meredith.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this early morning. I know the mayor told us to turn up a little bit last night, but I'm glad that you made it out this morning. So I am the Director of K-12 Research at UNCF, the United Negro College Fund. We are the largest scholarship provider to minority students outside of the federal government. We also conduct advocacy work in the community. And so how I really center families in this work is, as the Director of Research, is by our African American Perceptions Research Series. So for over a decade, we have been committed to hearing from parents, students, teachers, counselors, and really lifting up their voices, because too often we know that Black voices are rendered silent in this work. We know that they're often pushed to the margins, and so at UNCF, we've been dedicated to lifting those voices. But we also center families through our outreach and community engagement with districts, with some of you all. Shout out to our K-12 advocacy team here who has been going into the communities at fairs, at various events, uplifting the work, sharing resources. But another way that we center our families in this work is really by believing in Black and brown families. We know that belief is often rooted in trust, and oftentimes we don't trust, we don't believe our Black families. And so at UNCF, we're really dedicated to doing this work, and so I'm excited to have this conversation. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicholas Hartlip. A little bit about my introduction. I work at a college, Berea College. Berea College was founded in 1855 in Berea, Kentucky, and it's a private liberal arts college known for its commitment to providing high-quality education to students with limited financial resources. It's the first interracial and co-educational college in the southern United States, emphasizing equality and access to education for all. What's really special about Berea is it operates a tuition-free model, offering every student a tuition promise scholarship, which covers the cost of tuition. If you look up Berea, you'll see the storied history. That's important to me in terms of how I come to this work. I'm a transracial adoptee, raised in the Midwest, now working in the South at a justice-oriented school of education, a Department of Education. Last thing you should know is I'm a girl dad. Three girls. First, will start college next year. And so, like Valerie said, as a teacher, educator, as a father, all of those are incorporated in my identity, personal and professional.
Thank you so much. And now I'd like to have our friends who are joining us online. We have three panelists joining us online. We have two friends from Ball State. So if I could ask Dr. Eva to begin. Dr. Eva, I believe you may be on mute.
My apologies. Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. My name's Eva Zigman. I'm a professor in the Department of Early Childhood, Youth, and Family Studies at Ball State. And for the last 15 years, I've had the express honor and privilege of partnering with members of a historically African-American neighborhood in Muncie, Indiana, toward the end of developing a community-engaged program of educator preparation that would center community cultural wealth as essential knowledge for future teachers. And we're excited to share a little bit more about that work with you today. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much. Walisha.
Hello. Hopefully you can hear me pretty good. My name is Willisha Scaife, and I wear many hats. I serve as the Professional Learning Specialist for Culturally Responsive Family and Community Engagement in the Teachers College Dean's Office at Ball State University. And I also have my own consulting business in this work, but more importantly, I'm a lifelong resident of the Whiteley community and convener of the Whiteley Institute on Community Engaged Teacher Preparation, where I have a privilege of working with an extraordinary team of community leaders and gatekeepers, Mr. and Mrs. Cornelius Dollison, Pastor Frank Scott, Miss Yvonne Thompson, Elder Michael Long, and Pastor Robert Scaife. Family engagement is my life's passion, and it's woven into every aspect of my work, whether I'm teaching students on campus, leading them on community walks through our neighborhood, facilitating workshops with local educators, or advocating for the crucial work for university leadership to elevate the voices of family and community in action meetings or wherever I am. I see my role as really a work that I feel called to more than just being employed. I consider myself deployed in this work to come alongside parents, families, and community members on behalf of the children we love.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. We have a great group of panelists who are practitioner scholars. And last but not least, Dr. Trudy, just share a little bit about yourself, and then you can go right into our first question, ma'am.
Wonderful. Thank you for that beautiful introduction of all our friends here. So my name is Dr. Trudy Cardinal. I'm beaming in all the way from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I am a professor at the University of Alberta. I work mainly in elementary education for the littles, so my terms might be different than what most of you have here. I'm Indigenous, I'm Métis Cree, and so I privilege always Indigenous ways of being, knowing, and doing in everything I do, and I spend a lot of time in community amongst the children, youth, and families, and excuse my little doggos if they bark while my mic is on. So thank you, everybody. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to be a co-moderator, and I get the privilege of asking the very first question. So I will roll right into that so we can keep going. Hey, excuse my dog. So I'll begin with a quote taken from the editorial. So, parents and family engagement often isn't built into the college and university programs that prepare the vast majority of America's teachers for the classroom. Only 51% of educator preparation programs provide at least one course on parent and family engagement, according to a 2021 survey from the American Association of Colleges for Teacher Education. And not all of those courses are required. So the question is, lack of content in education prep curricula on family, schools, and communities to support pre- and in-service teachers. What do we know currently about the barriers that prevent educator preparation programs from engaging with families and communities in responsible ways? So can I ask Eva to be the first to respond?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just want to echo some of the research that is provided in this opening quote. And so in 2019, the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement released a State of the States report, which was a landscape analysis of 56 United States and territories, inventorying the ways that states are addressing family engagement in their licensure and accreditation systems. And the report found, sadly, that only 30% of US states and territories are explicitly addressing training teachers in foundational elements of family engagement, and less than 40% address the need for teachers to establish strong relationships and trust with families. And other research has shown that fewer than 40% of family-facing professionals believe that their pre-service or professional training fully covered core competencies or any competencies at all necessary to engage families. Only currently, again, to echo the quote at the beginning, only half of departments of education even offer one standalone course, And of those that do offer one standalone course, 75% of those report that that's not integrated in any meaningful way with other constructs like culturally responsive practices or language and literacy. So, just like personally, I started my career, like Trudy mentioned that she did, as an elementary school teacher. I'm going to tell you that not one day of my program of preparation mentioned, let alone focused on, the imperative of family and community engagement. Not one class period was spent on understanding the culture or the context from which children come. And the families who I would not reach out to in partnership could tell you that that was true of my preparation, right? And as I experienced the dissatisfaction that results from a disconnect between children's life outside of school and their experience inside of school, I sought out graduate study in early childhood education, a field that garnered my interest because of the fact that family and community and school collaboration is really baked into the foundation of that discipline. In early childhood education, terms like families and communities and culture and care and collaboration and relationships are elevated as constructs without which our efforts will always fall short. So, according to NAFSCI, again, in more than half of programs of educator preparation nationally, either this content is absent, or if it is present, it's presented as, a lot of the time, as supplementary or extra for educators instead of vital to their work and to their students' success. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva, for that informative, somewhat frightening statistics, but I can't wait until we all take this up and see the beautiful changes that are going to be coming. So now we will pass over to Alicia. Can you please respond?
Yeah, so usually when I'm asked questions like these, I take a community perspective and I share from that lens. That is the lens that I feel most comfortable and confident in sharing. And I have simply always wondered this: who thought it was ever wise to prepare teacher candidates who will spend 30, 40 years educating children without teaching them how to fully engage with the parents and families, communities who were the first to pour into and shape the very lives of these children? Like, that just kind of blows my mind. These are the same individuals, families, community folks, who will continue to guide the lives of these students for the rest of their lives. And also, community, we're the ones who have hopes for how these children will impact our lives, our communities in the future. So when ed prep preparation institutions undervalue the impact of authentic engagement with families, and then under-prepare candidates in that area, wow, we really risk sending these new educators into communities, especially those communities considered marginalized, with more deficit mindsets than maybe they had even coming into the university. So without guidance on how to effectively challenge the biases of students or of these teacher candidates, we really are taking a risk on unintentionally having these new teachers harm children, families, and communities throughout their careers. And that's pretty dangerous.
Well said, well said. I just want to sort of elevate something you said there, that what is it that our ed prep leaders are valuing, right? Because if we truly valued, right, engagement with families and communities, it would be, integral to the curriculum that we share with our pre-service teachers. So thank you for sharing that. I want to turn this question over to our friends in the room. Dr. Anderson, what are your thoughts about this question?
Yeah, so I think similar to what Walisha said, I think a critical barrier are the deficit narratives really permeated about our Black and brown families in schools. For the last 2 reports at UNCF, we've conducted, and not just UNCF, several studies. We know that Black parents are involved. We show that 84% of Black parents want kids to go to college, 94% check their child's homework on a regular basis, 83% are speaking with their teachers on a regular basis, and close to 90% want to have their voices heard. And so we know, sadly, though, that when parents are interacting with the schools, oftentimes they told us they felt intimidated. Our previous report report, Done to Us, Not With Us, is entitled just that, because the parents felt like education policy engagement was being done to them. They weren't being held as partners in this work. And so they just really didn't feel respected with that. And so I think it's also talking about the teachers, how we're training these teachers. We also conducted another study where we asked teachers about barriers to college for students. And in addition to the negative comments about apathy and students just not being ready for college, they leaned into the parents. You know, it's the parents' fault. They don't know about college. They don't want their children to go to college. And so, of course, we want to make sure that we're training our EPP programs to really have this anti-racist approach, anti-bias approach, because when they're not doing that, they're doing students a grave disservice. And so really leaning into those programs. And I also think, quite frankly, we need more Black and brown educators in these schools and colleges, making sure that they're talking about their lived experiences, having that representation. We often uplift our HBCUs because we have that representation of faculty, and they can talk about those experiences and being that as well. And then also, I just think that we should, some of the barriers is that in the EPP programs, we're not even bringing in families to talk about their experiences so they can share the problems that they have with teachers, with getting engaged in the schools. We in DC have several organizations like DC PAVE, organizations like Memphis Lift that has hundreds of parents that are willing to really go into to these schools and just be partners with them. And so I think it's making sure that we're having parents as partners and really ridding these programs of this deficit-based mindset, because we know that that's definitely not true.
I'd like to say that, this question, what do we currently know about the barriers that prevent EPPs from engaging with families and communities in responsible ways? Valerie mentioned, this academic work is important and plays a role. Knowledge can come from research. Knowledge can also be gleaned from experience. So from my experience as an EPP leader, to your point, as an Asian American, very underrepresented in this field, which is mostly white, female dominated, I've learned that some barriers are, it can be institutional conservatism. So we talk about home visits, engagement. Well, if you have a university or college that's a little dangerous, what could happen? We're not going to really support that. That's a contributing factor. Another contributing factor is with all the rules and regulations from states on their educator preparation programs, sometimes it can be lost, this work. We know, most educators know the importance and values of this work, but it gets put to the sideline and it really quickly becomes part of the null curriculum. Similar research, I'm an ed studies professor. In the 90s and the late 2000s, a lot of research was talking about how colleges of education didn't have foundations courses. They had one, if any. Similar to this research by NAFC, EPP leaders would respond to, oh, it's embedded, it's spiraled throughout. We don't have a standalone course, but we talk about family engagement. We talk about funds of knowledge, Louise Mall's work. We talk about cultural responsive pedagogies, but that's not enough. That's simply not enough. And so I would like to conclude by just saying there are a lot of barriers. That's where the EPP leadership comes in. Our article in this special issue was a case study. Check it out. It's interesting about the importance that the EPP leader has in terms of curriculum, coverage, and culture and climate.
Thank you, everybody. To be sure, we know that we need to do more with the schools of education, the colleges of education, in terms of making sure we have a very deep curriculum. I can say I work at Texas A&M. I'm the former assistant dean of educator preparation, and I can tell you that we do have it on the books, but we don't have it implemented into the curriculum. So if you ask leaders, where can you find it? They can show you the documentation, but to be sure, often it is a one-shot, one-course deal. We got to do better. Now, we have some examples of folks who have started to do things a bit differently, and that's why this esteemed panel is here today. I want each of them to talk about what they're doing within their context. They are challenging the status quo, and they are doing innovative projects around the country. We want you to hear about this today. We want to begin with our friends from Ball State who are on the line. They're going to talk to you all about what they're doing there. Walisha, you want to begin?
If it's okay, I think I'm going to start because the way that we organize this is that
Yes, ma'am.
I would give a little bit of the backstory.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Absolutely, thank you. And our article in the journal is also a case study, and it's a case study that has been unfolding really over the last decade and a half in the Whiteley neighborhood of Muncie, Indiana. So I'm going to give you a quick little backstory because I think the context of the work is very important, and then Walisha is going to kind of talk about the evolution and where we are right now. But so in 2009, I always say that I think the planets were sort of aligned because in our program of educator preparation, we were reflecting on many of the things that panelists have already discussed, right? And how inadequate, particularly practicum placements were. Not because of the practicum placements themselves, but because of the process where we would just kind of say, here's a map, go teach there, right? Without any understanding of the context of that community, or any really self-reflection on the part of candidates about who they were and from where they come and how they might meaningfully connect in any way with the spaces and places where they were going to be teaching, because we wanted to really refute this notion that teaching is only about content and strategies, because we know that to be an exceptional teacher you need to understand the context of children's lives so that you can take the content that you're responsible for teaching and really couple it with children's lived experience to make it relevant and engaging and more culturally responsive and certainly community sustaining, right? And it's not that that's just a good idea, that it's really imperative in your ability not just to teach, but really to reach children and families. So, as we were deliberating those things, we were approached by a matriarch from the Whiteley neighborhood that really expressed a dissatisfaction in what was happening in schools. And she said, a lot of the teachers here at this moment in time, they don't just drive through the community. A lot of times they drive around the community, sort of drop in, share the content that they're responsible for teaching, but they're really circumventing the wisdom and the expertise of the community that really could be elevating their practice and children's meaningful engagement with that context. And so this neighborhood matriarch said, how about if the community collaborates with the university and really radically reimagines how we prepare teachers to do this work? And so we were able to together chart this new path for educator preparation. The program would be an 18-credit experience where we would take required content and mesh it together, where candidates would be 100% of the time, every day, experiencing their preparation in the neighborhood where they would be teaching. And we would enlist community members as co-colleagues in the sharing of that content. Also, neighborhood members would be mentor families to our candidates, invite them to church, invite them into their homes, invite them to community council meetings, share the wisdom, walk with the elders, and really learn again, the cultural wealth of the space in which they were privileged to be doing that work. And so for 13 years, we did that work together, sharing in each other's lives, sharing in a mutually established vision for children's success, and most importantly, sharing the power that traditionally belongs almost exclusively to the university in such endeavors. And so together we were really proud to co-develop what we would characterize as, unfortunately, a radically reciprocal program of educator preparation. And I'll turn this over to Walisha now to kind of say how that has emerged into something quite different than what we originally sought out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eva. We enjoyed this co-constructive and collaborative work in mutual respect and intentional reciprocity for 13 years until leadership at the university changed, priorities shifted, and decisions were being made by the university without having conversation and without consent from the community. And when we get to that point, we begin as a community to say, well, you know what? When we couldn't resolve it, when we couldn't make this better, get back to where we were in this joint effort and this truly co-collaborative work, we said as community, you know what, nothing about us without us. Our community really did grieve for a little while that we did not have that program working together as it had before, that we did not have our SCC, the program named SCC Partnership. But we also realized that we are and have always been a storytelling community, a community that values our children, their education, and our futures. And so as this type of community, this narrative storytelling community, we understood that we had already been doing this work of teaching our children and telling our stories to give them the knowledge, inspiration, and determination to be successful from the beginning, even before this model, this beautiful partnership. And so because it had to stop as it was, we knew that we could not stop doing that. So we decided we would continue to do the work that had been done for decades in our community. We would continue to do that work. So we're also, I would say, a hospitable community. And so we've always welcomed teachers in, we've always welcomed college students in, anyone who wants to listen and learn, we welcome them in. We're willing to share our stories with anyone who will listen and to mentor educators in particular to be better at not only teaching, but we always say reaching our children. And so as a result of recounting all of these things, reminding ourselves of who we are, who we've always been, the work of investing in children, the work of investing in pre-service candidates was revived, and it was revived under a new name. We were so really excited to receive an innovation grant from the National Association of Family, Schools, and Community Engagement. And so new life was breathed into our intentions, and we formalized our own Whiteley Institute on community engaged teacher preparation. So there is a wealth of course, in every community there is wealth, community cultural wealth. We have so much, and we wanted to continue to share that. And so on our slide, you can kind of see a wealth category. That wealth category, along with culturally responsive children's books, are the textbooks and the frame for our professional development series, which again, we've just been delighted to share with any and all who will come and listen and learn from us. So we take this wealth, we have these experiences, but we also took that same model and those children's books and created a program in our community called Literacy for Liberation, where we provide literacy experiences for neighborhood children in a spring semester Saturday Freedom School-like experience. So Ball State University continues, and other organizations as well, to support our institute, but we, the community, have sole authority of our work. The covenant that was rebuilt, now we lead it. We are at the helm of that work. We are, in fact, the architects of our own imagination, continuing to teach our children and sharing our incredible wealth with anyone who will listen. And we believe that's important. Our children, we expect to be storytellers, story makers, and we want them to influence the next generation, as we hope that we are doing with them. So we are ensuring that this work continues.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Walisha. I appreciate you sharing. For anybody that would like to go see them in action, I really encourage you all to go see what the Whiteley community is doing. This is teacher preparation led alongside the community. And all the knowledge doesn't rest with the university, but this work is done in conjunction with the community. How fantastic. That's innovation for sure. I want to move on now and share another project with everyone here. And this is with Dr. Nicholas. He spoke to you all earlier about Berea College and his work there. He is actually the chair. And I wanted to pose this question to you, sir. So given the significant gap in teacher preparation regarding family and community engagement, as highlighted by the stats we heard earlier, what specific strategies can EPPs adopt to address this deficiency and better equip future educators to foster stronger, home-school partnerships?
Yeah, so to answer that question, I'll give you context. Our case study that we wrote, 16 authors, could have been easily 20 more, but JTE told us, we'd run out of space. But the point being, relationships matter. So all of those authors of our case study are part of this community. So the picture on the slide here they're not the community, they're a stock photo, but I wanted to elicit this notion of belonging, right? Diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. The strategies in our article, we talk about how Berea College is an innovative, non-traditional educator prep program. We have 13 programs, and we do things differently. So just by a show of hands, people in the room, raise your hand if you were trained as a teacher. Okay, perfect, hands down. So the people that raised your hand, when you student taught, did the college or university pay for your student teaching? You should have came to Berea, right? So we support our students in a lot of ways, certainly financial, that's big support. But another way we support them is when they come to study with us, they become part of what we call the community of teachers. And so the community of teachers, we draw on a theoretical framework of community of practice. And so in our article, in our case study, we describe our community of teachers. It's special. It's one which our graduates return, so they boomerang, they graduate, they leave, they teach, and they come back. It also is a community comprised of people who maybe exit the profession and come in a different capacity. So they work at Berea College. They studied and trained with us. Point being, the EPPs, if we want to value this homeschool partnerships, we need leaders that will lead and ensure it happens. Who is standing watch? And so right now, that is my role and responsibility. Certainly, it's trial and error. You just have to start. You're going to make mistakes, but EPPs, you need to do better, try. You might fail, but you'll learn. Another thing is accreditation tends to really drive everything. And EPP leaders need to understand when to push back a little bit, to say, okay, yes, I understand we have to do this, but can we do it a different way? How can we engage families and communities in different ways? Last thing is, I think that EPPs, the leadership, sometimes forgets who stakeholders are. So, we'll quickly say, okay, they need to be at the meeting. They need to be at the meeting. Their voice needs to be heard. But sometimes even the students themselves, their voices aren't heard. What is the experience of a student in your EPP experiencing? What lived experiences can they talk about? And in the case study, we talked about Julian Vieira, a math professor, Latinx math professor, and how he had a positive experience where students came up and said, Dr. Vieira, you're the first Latino professor I've had, let alone in STEM education. And they started doing potlucks, comidas, and once a semester, they have a comida. So it's not really hard. It's not rocket science, but really, you need an EPP leader that will make sure it happens.
Thank you for that, reminding us that leadership matters for sure. I want to move on now to our friend at UNCF. And Dr. Anderson, the question for you is, the UNCF report, Hear Us, Believe Us, Centering African American Parent Voices in K-12 Education, showed that across the board, Black parents value Black teacher and leader representation. Talk a little about those findings from the report, and what are some of the ways that HBCUs are helping to bring more representation to the education field?
Thank you. Thank you. So in that report, we found across the board, and this was a national study with African American parents, and we found that across several indicators, they felt more respected in the school when there were more Black leaders, when there were more Black teachers. Their aspirations for college were higher. There was less discipline when there were more Black teachers. And so again, we see that having this representation matters, and we know if we're thinking about representation, that HBCUs are key to that. How many HBCU alum do we have in the room here? Yes, we have some proud HBCU alum. Yes, so we know that our HBCUs are really critical to this, and having that representation is important. If you can kind of think back to when you were a child, if you had your first educator that looked like you, how did that make you feel? How did it make your parents feel? Did they feel more respected? Did they feel more valued because they had that commonality? And so we know our HBCU EPP programs are really pivotal. We have a program like Howard University. They have a class on engaging with the families. There's also the program, Norman C. Francis program at Xavier University in Louisiana, where they're engaged in the community in a residency program. They're getting students from the community in the community to give back. We have over 15 HBCU K-12 schools across the campus, and so this is where you have a K-12 school on the campus. Howard University, Dell State has a school. Shout out to my kids are actually students in one of those programs, and you can feel the love of community with the teachers and that representation. But we also have programs like the Call Me Mr. program at Claflin and across the board that are really centering Black males and making sure we can get more Black male educators into the classroom as well. In UNCF, we've been working with a K-12 fellowship program where we have over 300 students and alumni that are HBCU students who work in communities. Raise your hand if you want an internship. We'll come by our table. If you want students to intern with you for the summertime, we have HBCU students that spend their time really getting to know education and that community. And so we would love to be able to partner with you all and help get more of our HBCUs infused in some of this work.
A lot of good stuff going on. Listen, we're running low on time, but we want to hear from at least 2 folks in the audience. If you have a question that you'd like to pose to anyone on our panel, you can make your way forward or stand up. We'll get a mic to you. We have time for about 2 quick questions.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie, and I just briefly wrote this question. I closed my book. So thinking about the curriculum, and I've always thought about this for a while, but if we think about education, of course, you all know kindergarten, first grade. I'm going to say it. Kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, first year college, maybe second year college. We're all learning the core subjects: English, history, math, language reading. So why not incorporate sociology into the curriculum? That would change everything. Earlier today, we discussed empathy, we discussed understanding cultures and relationships. Sociology is the study of human relationships. Why are we not conditioning our children to learn sociology in school? That will change. Everybody in here in this room, help everyone with engagement, family dynamics. I'll just write what I wrote. Why is sociology not a core class subject in school? Sociology helps students develop critical thinking skills, understanding social factors that influence their lives, help become more informed and engaged citizens. This allows children to navigate diverse societies by providing social structures, power dynamics, and critical cultural competency, which in turn teaches communication and so much more. How can we enforce or include this into the curriculum? I've been saying this for a long time. That's my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Remember, we talked here, we've heard about different institution types. So you have minority serving, HBCUs, ANAPZs, HSIs. You have liberal arts colleges. You have 2 years. The United States is replete with different institution types, public, private. Within that diversity and heterogeneity, you have sizes of EPPs. So I think everyone would agree that that's best practice to have that in the EPP. I can speak from our small size, it's a rule-based EPP liberal arts. We are very interdisciplinary. So students might take a course in child and family studies. They might take a development course in psychology and get credit for it in our EPP program. So your point is well taken, and that kind of stems back to my earlier statement. Scholars have been looking at education studies, social foundations of ed, cultural foundations of education, and that research said that EPPs had very little. So it's very similar. It's kind of a parallel problem. It's not being covered in EPPs. So my response is a great question. And
Yeah, and I wanted to add that I think I saw about 40% of the folks in this room put their hands up that they went through teacher training. And so for the rest of you, you should know that there are standards, whether it's core curriculum or every state has what are called teaching standards. And it is expected that our future teachers will come out understanding instruction, planning, assessment, and understanding about families and communities. What happens is that, A, we don't give them enough of those courses, if at all. B, by the time they get to the school district, when they're given that yearly evaluation, all of those things I just described are on the evaluation: planning, instruction, assessment. But teachers are not evaluated on whether or not they engage families and communities. So we have it in writing, but we don't hold the districts or the EPPs accountable. Now, so I just wanted to share that. Okay, time for one more question, quick question? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that question.
This question is for Willisha Scaife. I have a small question which probably requires a big answer, but for the Whiteley Institute, what do you suggest are next steps for anyone here who would be interested in taking the same endeavors into other communities?
Thank you for that question. If the question is specific to how would I encourage community to say, hey, come to us, I would definitely say start with community leaders, champions, gatekeepers, people who really hold the hopes and dreams for families in their own community. Start with them. And I really think it's a model for sustainability, even for our EPP prep and all of the things that we're trying to do, is that if we start with community, listen, I say, let's lean in, listen, learn, and love well, right? Like if we go in, as we call it, with this radical reciprocity, willing to listen and learn, we will find that communities have answers to their own problems. Yes, there is a need to reach out sometimes and get support, but I would say start with those passionate community leaders. It's not always people who have degrees or who've done all of these amazing educational things. It's people who have funds of knowledge, people who have hopes and dreams for the kids and families, and who are dependent upon the success, right, of their children. And so not only should we go there to listen and learn how to build, but the sustainability model is really within community. So I hope that answers. If you're a university, if you're EPP groups, doing teacher training, same thing. Get to know community authentically, truly elevating, listening and learning. Let's practice what we preach. Let's be lifelong learners as educators, and let's listen to community and let community give us shape and tell us how to move forward, allowing them to lead. Let's come alongside them, right, and help their dreams come true in ways that they would allow us to. I hope that answers. Please reach out. I would love to share more, but I hope that
Absolutely. I want to remind everyone in the room that we have some documents related to this presentation available in the app. Please make sure you access those documents. So we have to say goodbye. We didn't have enough time to talk. We didn't have enough time. We needed a couple hours here. So I want my friends, the panelists, to share just some concluding thoughts, about 45 seconds each. What are your thoughts as we sort of finish this conversation about the need to increase the capacity among our teachers in terms of family and community engagement. And we'll begin with you, Willisha.
Of course. Thank you. I want to just say now. Like if I had to give you a word, it would be now. We use this term in our community called kairos. Kairos is a Greek word for time, but it's not like time in minutes and days and hours, that kind of time that we live by. It's not chronos time, it's kairos. Kairos is the opportune, critical moment for action. It's when the conditions are right to accomplish something crucial. Kairos breaks into chronos when the chaos and crisis requires. So I say again, now is the time for us to move forward. It's Kairos time for us. Listen, historically, our stories, Black and Brown stories, have been either, if they are shared, they've been shared incompletely or incorrectly. But our community decided it was Kairos time. It was time to consider the obstacle as an opportunity, step in and do what's required. I want to say that to all of us today. As a society, as a nation, we face the attempt to erase culture, erase faces, and all of this history from textbooks, from bookshelves, from classrooms. We are no doubt in a time of chaos. But in this time, it is not a time to shrink back. It's Kairos time, a call to action in ed prep institutions and K-12 education. It's Kairos time. We've got to move forward on behalf of families and children and our collective futures. It's Kairos time.
Wow, your passion jumps off across the screen. I appreciate you, sister. All right, Dr. Eva, quick comments, please.
Yeah, very quick. I think one of the things that we have been talking about is that like the university can be like this phenomenal place for the incubation of ideas, you know, for testing things and trying things and really incubating innovation. But at the end of the day, that's not where this work can be sustained and can live, right? It's in the community, because the community is committed to, in the long term, to this work. There is never going to be a time when the community is not going to care about love, do everything that they can to pour into their kids and the people who are responsible for shepherding them alongside of them, right? So yeah, let's incubate and let's tinker and let's try at the university, but let's have the humility, right, and the grace to understand the wisdom of communities and where this work can actually live and in which we can be privileged to partner.
Thank you, Dr. Eva. Dr. Anderson.
Yeah, so in conclusion, I think one thing we need to think about is how can we scale more of these residency programs to grow your own so that we have teachers coming from the community. Shout out to my teacher, my first Black teacher, Miss KK, who lived in my neighborhood. She knew my mama. I knew I would get in trouble because she knew my mama and we were in the community. And so making sure that you have those connections. I think also we need to just make sure that we're dismantling a lot of these, again, deficit narratives about our families because they're so harmful to our students and to the community. And then that we're not just asking parents to just have a seat at the table, that we're listening to them at that table, that we're bringing up other tables and making sure that we're making place and space for them, and not just to check a box, but to truly have authentic community engagement. And then lastly, we just ask you all to partner with us, with UNCF. We have a session here with our K-12 team at 1:15 in the academy where we'll talk about how we can engage with communities with HBCUs, and also stop by our table to learn more about some of this work and research. We really want to be partners with you all to share resources and tools with families, so we would love to just stay connected. So thank you.
Perfect. Dr. Hartlip.
Yeah, my last thoughts are, one, the importance of leadership development. We need to train leaders in innovative ways. We don't need to recycle and continue oppressive, problematic practices. So think differently, do things differently, have different epistemologies, different pedagogies. Last would be, if you haven't read any of the articles or the reports, to read them, print them off, email them, share them with your network, because the more information that's shared, that changes people's ideas and their thinking. And if we just do these reports, if we do this panel, which is why virtual, it's amazing, we can have more impact. So share the work, support the work, and keep fighting.
And finally, Dr. Trudy, joining us from Canada. Any final thoughts, ma'am?
I know I for sure feel inspired, and I'm ready to take up this call to action. As somebody who spends a lot of time in community, I understand the importance of this, and how it is time for us to take it up. I especially love to see the passion, the enthusiasm, and the phrases you've given me to hang on to so that we can carry forward in beautiful ways. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, all of the panelists, for sparking that little fire in my own heart so that I can come back to this work and know that I'm not alone in it, that where there is a collective, a large movement, a community who's doing good work. And thank you to everybody who joined to listen. And I'll pre-thank you for taking up this call and going back to your own home places and starting something immediately. And thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trudy. My pleasure as well to learn alongside everybody today. Happy to bring forward some great innovation that's happening out there, some great work by our friends. I want to give you all a final call. I want to push you to do something that maybe you didn't think to do before. I want you to find out how your teachers are being evaluated. Whether you have children in the school or you're connected to a school district, how are they being evaluated? There is a rubric, and every teacher is evaluated yearly. Instruction, assessment, planning, but families and communities should be that other component that often is dropped off of that assessment and evaluation piece. Let's hold school districts and colleges of education accountable. Let's work to be intentional about increasing the capacity among teachers to know how to do this incredible work. Thank you, family, for being here today.
Thank you.